want to recognize my partner on the front line in this case, one of the best lawyers at being on them. He hails from Atlanta, Georgia, Attorney Chris Stewart. Yeah. His law partner, Attorney Justin Miller. Yeah. Attorney Madeline Simmons. A great Minnesota lawyers.
All right, y'all, coming to you live right here, ColumbusBlack.com. I believe you all have heard, but the verdict is out. Derek Chauvin has been found guilty on all 3 charges. And as you all can see, we're showing live right now, Benjamin Crump live sharing some of the information. I think the family's going to come up and speak. We're going live here in Columbus, though. Why? Because we want to make sure that you all, our community, has a voice and opportunity to share on the platform your thoughts in regards to the trial and, you know, the unfortunate murder of George Floyd, as well as all of the others that we know have been killed over the years. So with that being said, we're going to open it up. We're going to have some special guests to join us. We're going to be on not for a long time, but enough time to really talk about what is going on. And then I unfortunately I just received this, y'all. I received a message that we unfortunately had a young lady, sounds like 15-year-old sister was shot by an officer in Southeast Columbus today. And I just saw that come through 10tv.com. So that's one of our local news stations. And yeah, we'll share more. We'll get that link dropped into the chat at some point. Very unfortunate news to hear, especially today and right now with what is going on. So I'm gonna turn this back up for a minute. Let's listen in for a second.
Tara Brown, and we have the mother of his daughter, Gianni Floyd. We have Roxy Washington, and we have Gianna. So I'll make some brief remarks, and then we're going to have Attorney Stewart.
All right. We want your comments while they're working on that. We want to know your thoughts, so feel free to jump into the chat. I'm checking out the chat on Facebook. We're live on Facebook and on YouTube. We want to know your thoughts, your perspectives in regards to the verdict today. What does this mean? What do you think? We know this is a first, right? And a historic event that we witnessed live last year, and then obviously again today. So we want to know what you all think. We want your thoughts, so please drop it in the chat. Let us know. And once again, we'll have a few people that will chime in a little bit later. They'll join us for this live opportunity for us to chat as a community in regards to the verdict, the guilty verdict of former police officer Derek Chauvin, right? Due to the murder of George Floyd. So, and then as I said, we unfortunately heard that a 15-year-old young lady was shot today by a police officer in Southeast Ohio, Southeast Columbus, that is, excuse me. So with that being said, once again, hit the share button. If you're watching us now, go ahead and hit the share button. We want to make sure we get our community involved in this discussion that we're going to have. And then we're going to listen in real quick to Attorney Crump.
For equal justice under the law would be intertwined. America, let's frame this moment as a moment where we finally are getting close to living up to our Declaration of Independence, that we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equally, that they're endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, that amongst them are life and liberty and the pursuit of happiness. Yeah. Well, America, that means all of us. That means Black people. That means Hispanic people. That means Native people. That means Asian people. That means all of us, America. We frame this moment for all of us, not just for George Floyd. This is a victory for those who champion humanity over inhumanity, those who champion justice over injustice, those who champion morals over immorality.
Okay.
America, let's lean into this moment and let's make sure, Reverend Al, that this moment will be documented for our children yet unborn as they continue on the journey to justice, knowing that the blood of George Floyd will give them a trail to find a way to a better America, a more just America, where Breonna Taylor gets an opportunity to sleep in peace at night without the police busting in her front door. A more just America, where Ahmaud Arbery gets to run free and not be lynched for jogging while black.
Stay tuned, y'all. We're about to talk about this.
A more just America, where Jacob Blake and Anthony McClain and Walter Scott and Laquan McDonald and all these other black men, Terrence Crutcher, who was shot in the back while running away like Dante Wright was just a week ago, because for some reason, black men running away from the police is more dangerous than young white men who commit mass murders and walk towards the police with an assault weapon, Reverend Bryant, like Kyle Rittenhouse in Kenosha, Wisconsin.
All right, stay tuned, y'all.
America, let this be the precedent. Yes. Let this be the precedent where we live up to the high ideals and the promises when we say liberty and justice for all.
All right.
Those sun-kissed children are included in all. Those children who overcame slavery, the Middle Passage, the Dred Scott decision,
all right,
Plessy v. Ferguson, Jim Crow, and his much smarter, wiser son, Jim Crow Jr. Esquire. Let this be the precedent where we overcome systematic racism and oppression, and that we are a better people, and we will leave our children a better world for us all.
All right.
At this time, we will hear from a great lawyer, because nobody does this alone. It's always...
All right, y'all. So here we go. So we're live right here on Columbus Black. Why? Because of the verdict that just came down a little while ago, about an hour and a half, almost 2 hours ago now. So I think the word is getting out, and we want to know what you think. We have some people on the chat. Feel free to chime in. We want to know your thoughts, right? This is your opportunity as our community to weigh in. Obviously, this situation with George Floyd was in Minneapolis, but we know we've had it here in Columbus, Ohio as well. And unfortunately, I just received news that it's happened again today in Southeast Columbus with a 15-year-old female who was shot by the police. So, yeah, I want to know what you all think, right, in regards to this verdict. I know many felt like it's long overdue. What do you all think is next, right? What's to come? Is this the beginning of a change in regards to accountability, in regards to how Black men and women, people of color, are dealt with by the authorities? And we want to know what you think. So feel free to weigh in. As I said, we have a few guests that's supposed to pop in a little bit later to chat about this situation, this discussion. And we want to hear what they have to say as well. So feel free, if you have a comment, to drop your comment in the chat. Let's make this active, right? I know y'all are not just jumping on just to see what's going on, but I know you all have something to say. What did you think the verdict was going to be today? When you woke up this morning, when you heard the news throughout the day, over the last few weeks as the trial has gone on, what did you think the verdict would be? And then once you heard it, how did you feel about it? That's what I want to know. Drop that in the chat, y'all. Let's talk about it. All right. Well, listen in while I wait for y'all to jump in. I want to hear what y'all think. Remember to hit that share button. Let's get the word out. Let's have a conversation as a community. We can't say we don't have a voice. You do on ColumbusBlack.com. We're on Facebook and on YouTube. live right now. So we want to hear you weigh in.
The whole world should not have to rally to get justice for one man. But that's what happened.
Amen.
This wasn't a city case. This wasn't one family's case. This was the entire world's case. And justice finally came.
Yes.
But it shouldn't have to be so hard to attain this level of justice in cases like this when we can see with our own eyes the only difference is the color of skin. And that's the change that we all want. That's not a change that's outrageous.
Remember,
Yes,
leave
law
your comments.
enforcement
What did
have
you
a
think
dangerous
this morning?
job. They have to carry a spear
What
and
did
a
you think the
sword
verdict was going to be?
and a shield.
How did you
all too
feel
often,
once you heard the
African-Americans
verdict? We
only
want to know.
get the spear or the sword.
Wow.
We need more of the shield.
Yeah, amen. Amen.
Because this is not a case against every officer. My life was saved by 2 law enforcement officers years ago. So I will never throw every cop under the bus. But we will put more cops in jail when you kill someone for no reason, just because they're Black.
Amen.
Okay.
And we can find a unifying purpose between law enforcement and the African-American community by changes, starting with the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act.
Amen.
A beautifully written bill that will help protect the community
Yes.
and solve policing. And the main question is, will we let politics divide us? Because that's what happens. Republican or Democrat, you're going to stick to your side. Unify, as Ben has been saying, as Rev has been saying, and get this bill passed and save people so that you don't have to board up your own cities for situations like this. And if
What do
not,
y'all
we'll see you
think?
next time when it's time to vote.
Amen.
You've seen what's happened across this country.
See.
And we shouldn't have to be so happy when we finally get one. But we are in celebration for Gianna, for Roxy, who has stood strong this entire time, for the brothers and sisters, for the activists like Tamika and everybody out here, for this entire group. And it wouldn't have happened without every single one of y'all, white or Black people out there praying for this family, getting love and support. And we love all of you all. Let this be a changing point in America for policing in a positive way, and let's unify.
Okay.
Thank you, my brother.
There you go.
Love you, man.
Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank y'all for joining us live on Columbus Black. We are here to discuss
Tony Romanucci from Chicago, Illinois.
the verdict in the Derek Chauvin trial as he was found guilty on all 3 charges. I want to know from y'all that's jumping online, when you woke up this morning, what did you think the outcome would be? Once you actually heard the outcome, what did you think? How do you feel? And what's next? I want to know what you think is next.
That we stand here before you feeling a tremendous amount of joy.
Feel free to jump in.
Hope. For me, 36 years ago, I was a young public defender in Cook County. Reverend Jackson, I know you know that place very well. And that's where I was introduced to the marginalization.
And I'm about to drop that link.
And brown people. And for now, this is the 36th
In the moment,
year I've seen it come through.
the unfortunate news of the
really
15-year-old
feel that this
female who
country
was
has
shot in
turned a corner.
Southeast Columbus
But I'm going to tell
today.
you, it was a tough corner to turn, and it couldn't have been done. And I'm going to reach out to you all, the press, for spreading the message, to the strength and wisdom of Ben Crump, to you, Reverend Al Sharpton, Reverend Jackson, the attorneys, Chris, Justin, Madeline, Jeff, Michelle, Lavani, Nicolette, Ian, all the teams in all the cities in this country, the Attorney General and their magnificent prosecution team. They did it, right? They tied up every loose thread for that jury. They let them follow it right through. They showed them how to prosecute and how to convict. And we are so grateful. But make no mistake, we are not done. The George Floyd Policing and Reform Act must pass the Senate.
Yes. Amen.
We now know that today, police can and will be held accountable for needless death. This death never should have happened. George should have been alive somewhere with his daughter, Gianna, playing on a playground.
Amen.
That's right.
From now on, everyone's on notice that police will be held accountable, but we will be held accountable too. This whole country should be held accountable, but police especially. I am so thankful to all of you. I am hopeful for a greater America, for a great
All right.
vote of confidence. I will tell you that Speaker Pelosi called us not once today, but twice.
Yeah.
Our speaker is a great leader.
Y'all see the questions out there, 1, 2, and 3. I want to know, what did you think the verdict was going to be? Especially when you woke up this morning. What's the first thing you said once you heard the verdict? And what's next, y'all? What is next? We want to hear from our community. What is next?
I met a young lady yesterday. Her name was Lamaya.
Mm-hmm.
She said one thing to me that I promised her that I would repeat today. Lamaya is not part of the Floyd family. She is part of the Wright family. And she said one thing, and I promised her I would say it today. We are all God's children.
Yes.
Thank you, Lamaya.
Huh.
Thank
See
you,
my-
Tony. And I know Speaker Pelosi called, we need to acknowledge when we were at the courthouse as we were leaving, I got one of those calls that we stopped everything. No idea. And it was Chris and
These conversations are starting to take place all over the country. Just got hit by my people in New York. They're about to start one at 7 o'clock. Columbus, y'all are first. You have the opportunity. What do you have to share? I'm hearing from a few folks that's planning to join us in a little bit. We have our platform. This is our platform. We can talk about it. Same thing you're going to do when you get on the line with your friends tonight and tomorrow. We want to know, what did you think the verdict was going to be? What did you say when you heard the verdict? And what's next? What do you think is next? Join in, weigh in on the conversation. Hit the share button. Let's have an interactive conversation tonight. This is your platform, our platform. We have the opportunity. So jump in the chat and share a comment.
Great Minnesota co-counselor Jim Storm, Michelle.
Yeah, and just so that you all know, yesterday the NAACP is looking into the details of the shooting from today to try to get some facts and details. We have some representatives of the NAACP from around the state that may be joining us here in a little bit as well. So hopefully they are able to do so. And we will go from there. But y'all want to stay tuned. I want to know what y'all think. Let's listen in. Here we go.
On civil rights. And everyone standing up here will work tirelessly until that happens. And I challenge everybody else in Minnesota to make that same effort. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Okay. Thank you, Jeff. Can we, because they're trying to get everybody take a step back. Let's try to make the podium. Let's try to make the podium. Just everybody take a step back. We're gonna have the family. We're gonna have this. We're gonna have the family come up.
All right.
Okay. Okay.
It sounds like the family's gonna be coming up, so we're gonna listen into that a little bit. But once again, I want to know what you all think.
Come and try
What's
to
next,
greet
y'all?
you all.
What did you think about the verdict? We want to hear your comments for those of you that are online with us right now. Let me jump to the YouTube channel. It's a little quiet on Facebook right now. Y'all are on, but y'all are not commenting. Let's see what they're saying on YouTube. Hold on 1 second. Here we go. Let's go here and see what we can find.
Tony, I remember all he could do was cry because he was heartbroken. He was heartbroken because remember, so many times it's a case to us. Tamika is a cause. You know, my son is a hashtag. But to them, this was their flesh and blood. Maria, they slept in the bed with George. I mean, the stories that they tell, you know this was a close family. He tells those stories right now how he used to pee on George. But yeah, he has become so dignified and articulate in expressing not just the fight for justice for his family, not just the fight for justice for Black America, but he really has become so articulate and saying we have to fight for all Americans, Mr. Philonise Floyd.
Hey, my nephew, he calling me Baby Al. Jesse calling me Steve Harvey. But man, it's I feel relieved today that I finally have the opportunity for hopefully getting some sleep.
That's
A
heavy,
lot
y'all.
of days that I prayed and I hoped and I was speaking everything into existence. I said, I have faith that he will be convicted. It's been a long journey.
Yeah.
And it's been less than a year. And the person that comes to my mind is 1955. And to me, he was the first George Floyd. That was Emmett Till.
Wow. Wow.
I did was on CNN with Deborah Watts, and she just brought him back to life.
Wow.
People forgot about him.
Yeah.
But he was the first George Floyd.
Yes.
But today, you have the cameras all around the world to see and show what happened to my brother. It was a motion picture, the world seeing his life being extinguished. And I could do nothing but watch, especially in that courtroom over and over and over again as my brother was murdered. Times, they're getting harder every day. 10 miles away from here, Mr. Wright, Dante Wright.
That's right. Yeah.
He should still be here. We have to always understand that we have to march. We will have to do this for life. We have to protest because it seems like this is a never-ending cycle.
Yeah.
Reverend Al always told me, we got to keep fighting.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to put up a fight every day because I'm not just fighting for George anymore. I'm fighting for everybody around this world.
Yeah.
I get calls, I get DMs, people from Brazil, from Ghana, from Germany, everybody, London, Italy, they're all saying the same thing. We won't be able to breathe until you're able to breathe.
That's right.
Today, we are able to breathe again.
Yeah.
Ms. Garner, I told you, we'll get justice. And we're gonna fight for you too. We're gonna fight for everybody. Thank you all so much for just giving us this time because we're here and we're not going anywhere. And I wanna thank all the protesters, all the attorneys who stepped up, all the activists who stepped up, and many who think they're not activists but advocates. Thank you all.
Amen.
Because justice for George means freedom for all.
All right. Yeah.
All right. And there we have it, y'all. So once again, I keep getting messages in regards to the young lady who was shot here in Columbus, Ohio, Southeast Columbus. I dropped a link in the chat. Very unfortunate news. Shot by an officer today and is dead. So very tragic. Please take a read if you get an opportunity, and let's keep the family in prayer as we receive this historic news today, and still in the midst of that, receive more news. So want to know what you all think, what you thought this morning in regards to the verdict. What did you think when you heard the news regarding the verdict, and what do you think is next, especially as we continue to have these cases on a regular basis? Want to know what you all think. Join us. Join us. As we listen to his other brother, we'll turn this back up real quick.
I'm grateful for Reverend Sharpton.
Yeah.
Thank you. He been fighting a long time. Long time.
Reverend Now.
Man. Reverend Jesse Jackson.
Yeah. Thank you.
It's a lot of history here.
Yes, it is.
History is here. This is monumental. Reverend Jesse Jackson, Al Sharpton, they lived to see this.
Yes. Wow.
Their fight wasn't in vain.
Wow.
It just didn't happen when they did it, but it happened now.
Amen.
And they're here to see it and be proud of it. And go back to when he did that prayer service. My family is a family that will not back down from prayer.
Yes.
And I believe because of prayer, we got the verdict we wanted.
Amen. Amen.
We got on our knees. Some of us stood up, but we asked the right person. We asked the right one.
Yes. Come on.
We said, God, we need justice. We need it now. And he answered. Man, I'm just grateful. I'm grateful that my grandmother, my mother, my aunts, they just got to see this history made. I'm grateful. My brother's not here. I'm grateful and I'm proud of him. I will salute him at every day of my life. I will salute him because he showed me how to be strong. He showed me how to be respectful. He showed me how to speak my mind. I'm gonna miss him, but now I know he's in history. What a day to be a Floyd, man.
All right, y'all. Y'all heard it.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Terrence. Now we will hear from George's baby brother, Rodney Floyd.
I want to thank y'all for joining us here live on Columbus Black. We obviously are watching history as it's being made right in front of our eyes. And 2 years in a row, right? And want to know what you think, how you feeling, what's on your heart, on your mind, as we get this news. And then we also received some tragic news in regards to another killing in Southeast Columbus today. Waiting on the details in regards to that. We don't have any facts, but that news was shared. We dropped it on the chat, Facebook. We'll drop it on YouTube as well. For those that are live with us, so we want to know what you think, how you feeling.
I'm mask up face, a hat and a mask, and they say, "Hey, I recognize the side of your face. Let me talk to you. I know who you are." And we have they'll stop and hold a great conversation telling me what they experienced as a child, what they saw, and what they need for change. And they say, "We are here for you." And this is everywhere I go, my brother go, we all go. And thank you, people, for the love in the streets. I'm thanking everyone because we couldn't have did this, and this is the victory for all of us. There's no color boundary on this. This is for everyone who's been held down, pinned down.
Yeah.
And you know what, people? We standing together in unity. And this right here, I'd like to thank our team. Mr. Attorney Ben Crump.
All right. Let's give us some accolades. Once again, I want to thank you all that are joining us. We want to have an open discussion. I want to know, what did you think? If you're watching right now, jump in the chat. I want to know this morning, what did you think the verdict would be when you heard the verdict, right? When you heard the verdict, what was the first thing that you said or thought? And what's next, y'all? What's next, right? What do you all think is next? We talk about accountability. We talk about legislation, police reform. I want to know, what do y'all think?
Everybody knows the video. And know what, the jury had the same mindset we all had. Guilty as charged. I'd like to thank them. I'd like to thank, again, everybody, the press and all. But
for George. This fight is not over. We're gonna stand here together. We're gonna try to get the George Floyd Act passed.
Yes.
The act has to be passed, people.
Yeah.
It has to be. We're gonna keep pressure on the Senate. Everybody. Thank y'all all for coming. George, I know that he love all y'all. Thank y'all.
All right, Roger.
Mm.
All right. And next we gonna have a man who, well, him and George used to text each other all the time. Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee always talk about CUNY homes, Houston, Texas. Back there, Rox, I think y'all call them Woo. We're gonna hear from Brandon Williams, was like a son to George.
Yeah. That's the name right there. I think he said Woo. It's a live name. All right. So let's see what we have going on here. Jumping back to the YouTube.
It's a very emotional day for me. And I don't really have the words. I'm overwhelmed with joy. But I do want to start by saying thank you. First off, thank you to all you guys advocating, protesting in the middle of a pandemic, putting your lives and safety on the line. We appreciate that. Especially to our legal team, Ben, Tony, Justin, Chris, Justin back here. Definitely thank you to Keith Edison and his team. They did an amazing job from start to finish. All of the evidence, all of the witnesses, everything proved exactly what we saw in that video. But yet, we still question the decision of the jury, and I wonder why. Oftentimes, this system fails us as Black men and women in America. With all evidence there, everything pointing to a guilty verdict, we somehow still don't get the guilty verdict. Or in some cases, I got my good friend Kenny Walker back here.
Yeah.
We don't even get charges.
Yeah, right.
So today is a pivotal moment for America. It's something this country has needed for a long time now.
Yes.
And hopefully today is the start of that. When I say a pivotal moment, we need change in this broken system. It was built to oppress us. It was built against us. Oftentimes, we see people who are supposed to protect and serve. Supposed to protect and serve. They do the total opposite. On the first day of trial, real short, then we had a press conference, and we kneeled for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. And when I got up, and it was my turn to speak, I said that every time I come out here, it's hard. Because it's the exact place where they took somebody from me that I love. And I absolutely dislike coming here. But I also said, this time it was easy. We came for one thing and one thing only. That was justice for George Floyd. And today, that's what we got.
Yes. All right, y'all.
So this time it wasn't hard at all. It wasn't hard at all. I'm big on faith and prayer.
Yes.
I had a lot of faith, but I was also optimistic. We need police reform bad.
Yeah.
I asked y'all, is that next on y'all list, police reform?
These guys are able to wear a badge and go out in the field, which means that they're qualified and trained to do their job at a high level. But when you shoot and kill a man that's running away from you that doesn't pose a threat, either you're not qualified and undertrained, or it's a choice and you want to kill Black men and women. It's either one or the other. And I think today, Keith Edison and his team proved that just because you are the law, you're not above the law.
Yeah.
We need each and every officer to be held accountable. And until then, it's still scary to be a Black man or woman in America encountering police.
Yeah.
So when I say today is a pivotal moment, it's a chance for America to take a turn in the right direction and right a lot of wrongs so that we don't keep adding to these names. So that little girls and boys like Gianna are not growing up fatherless.
Yes, sir.
So that families don't feel the pain we feel. It's a lot of sleepless nights.
Yes.
No family should go through that. And hopefully our country take a turn in the right direction today. And this day in history proves that it was a turning point. Thank you.
All right, y'all. So with that, we want to know what y'all are thinking out there. How y'all feeling? Y'all are hearing some really heavy messages out there. We know that y'all have to have some similar sentiments. Want to know, what do you think? Right at this point, the verdict is dropped. Guilty on all 3 charges, and a very historic day and year that has transpired here in our country. So with that, we continue to see and deal with issues. As you all can see, I have popped open the link as I switch over real quick. And it looks like we actually had, shooting here in Columbus as well. Earlier today, it looks like one dead after being shot by an officer in Southeast Columbus. So we did drop those links so you all can read that at your leisure as well and see. We don't have any facts or any details yet, right? We're just letting you all know what's been shared. And that was from 10tv.com. So with that being said, want to know what you all are thinking in regards to the verdict, as well as what you just heard that happened here in Columbus today, what has happened in Columbus previously, what's happened around our country, and then the significance of that with what we heard today. So want to go ahead and open it up. Let's listen to the sisters real quick. Hold on.
Almost a year ago, that we were committed to doing a couple of things. One thing is to ensure that justice was served and that we were going to be here and visible and present and actively involved until we saw it through. We are a family who's strong in our faith. We've relied on it in other areas of our life, and this time was no different. And we prayed to God, and we expected our prayers to not come back void, and He delivered for us today. So we are eternally grateful for everyone, from the press to the activists, the attorneys, the prosecution team, everyone. We have so many people that we want to thank that I just really feel like we're probably going to leave somebody out. But I just hope that you would charge it to my head and not my heart, because we sincerely appreciate everything that everybody has done. And we thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm really overwhelmed with emotion. And I just am grateful for this day. It's been a journey for sure. And this victory for George Floyd today is a victory for many.
Mm-hmm.
And when we started this journey, kind of like my sister said, we are committed to making sure we know we'll never get George back. And that's the sad part. But we are fighting, and we're going to continue to fight, because we've all individually and together as a family had that conversation that if we could have been there with George on that day, there probably would have been more than one death.
Mm-hmm.
But we couldn't be there. So we can't bring him back, but we can save lives. And we want the actual reform that's going to not only give us the change we want, but make sure not another family has to suffer what we've suffered. Thank you all. My sister kind of touched on everything. We have an amazing team here who have helped us along this journey. We're so grateful for everyone who has supported us along the way. We're forever grateful to you, and we love you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Tara. So we're going to hear from 2 more cousins, and then we're going to hear last from the family, Roxy and Gianna are going to come, and then Reverend Al may have.
All right, y'all. So once again, to bring y'all up to speed. We're here live on Columbus Black, and open mic, open discussion to talk about the trial, the verdict of the trial, and see what you all are thinking. Jump in the chat if you want to jump on live. Send me a message and we'll get you on live. All right.
This has been a hard road, not just for family, but for everybody. And I want to especially thank the Minneapolis community for holding it down at the George Ford Square. Janelle Austin, Jeanette Rupert, Maya Washington. These are community leaders that held it down at that place. They kept that place sacred for everyone to go there to express their condolences. And so we appreciate that. And this verdict is a verdict that is well needed and is overdue. And I want to say to the people around the world that is listening, it was a darkness. On May 25th was a very, very dark day. There was a lot of pain and there was a lot of hatred. But I want to say at the same time that I got a chance to witness something. I got a chance to witness the love that I saw around the world that was poured to the family. I don't know if I would ever see that again in my lifetime, but I'm glad that I got a chance to see the love that you have shown me, my family, and everyone, because you touched us. And I want to say thank you, and I'm so glad about this day. Thank you.
I just want to thank everyone again. All the family up here has basically said the same thing. So I just want to thank you. Thank you to the community. You all are very special to me. Mm-hmm. You're just like family. Yes. And I appreciate you at the square. So I'll leave you with the statement that I always say. You have to keep walking the walk.
Yes.
The journey isn't over. So continue to pray for us, pray for everyone, and keep walking the walk.
Yes. And I want to say one more thing. We must not let his death be his last word. Thank you.
Okay. And lastly, we're going to have Tiffany Hall, sister-in-law of George Floyd.
I just want to thank everyone for all the support. We couldn't do this without you guys. And we appreciate all the time and energy that you guys have put in to help us get this justice. Just know that this is the beginning. We still have a lot of other families we need to fight for. And we hope and pray that this will speak volume and we'll have a change in this world and we won't have to add any more families with our families. Okay, so we're really hoping that this will bring on a change. Thank you guys, and
thank you, Tiffany.
Thank you guys.
Now we will have Reverend Al come back to the podium and acknowledge some important individuals. And then we'll go ahead and take questions. Reverend Al Sharp.
Let me say this before we have questions. I think that it is appropriate that we respect those that laid the.
All right, Lacey Chris is now standing by. Lacey, what do we know? And set the mood for us for the scene out there tonight.
One of the
the shooting happened about an hour ago in the southeast side of Columbus. I'll move out of the way so you can see what is going on. It's about halfway down the block. You can see Columbus police.
All right, y'all. So want to come back. Clearly a very, very, very heavy day. Let's see what Reverend Jackson has to say, and then we're going to talk about the situation in Columbus.
Jurors out for an hour came back quiet so short. So well, we had to salt drink and smoke a cigarette. That's why it was so short. Well, Rayla asked the juror, why did they convict the killer? You know who he was. Brag about it, he could take his wife. He said, I could not imagine going to jail for killing a nigger. That was 55 years, 1955, now it's 2021. Things changing. Where Mississippi River started from now. It's time for a fundamental change. I want to thank, when we lost Johnny Cochran, we lost it all. Johnny Cochran, but God sent Ben Trump. Ben, we thank you so much.
Thank you, Ray.
I just want to say that when the thing first jumped off and Ben was killed, George was killed, Al and I flew and went and met Mr. Freeman. We had the case. He believed it couldn't happen. He believed it never happened before. We urged him to try Lieutenant Governor, Attorney General Keith Ellison. Keith took the case and had the false charge the first day. He had got the legal team, tested jurors, whole process led by Keith Ellison. The state is 3% African American. Keith Ellison. 1% Samoan, African American congressman. It's not closed. Minnesota, state with great proud traditions, Brother Ben.
Yes, sir.
Sons of light, but the struggle is not just about black and white, it's about wrong and right. There must be a massive protest march by white citizens of the state who stand for justice and jobs. This is the state of Hubert Humphrey, who led the struggle for public accommodation in 1964. The state of McCarthy, and for peace. This is the state of those who fought down.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're here and live, as you all can see, listening to Jesse Jackson. We'll jump in shortly for further discussion in regards to the verdict.
Black, there are some people in this state been stuck too long, must have to speak back, fight back. It's time for change. I want to express my thanks to all of you who come to the meeting to cover the story. And it's not the people on the team of chiefs of black and white. And we must learn to live together as brothers and not die apart. So we say we must learn to live together and not die apart. So we will live together. I want to express my thanks to Mark Morial, Irvin Lee, and all those who come together today, because we're going to keep marching. Thursday is the funeral for Brother Wright. And they were relieved, but we can't celebrate because the killings keep coming. I hope that the case today has broken the backbone of legal lynching. That's what this case should break the backbone of legal lynching. They lynched us with the law. We need to change that. Thank you very much.
And lastly, before we get to the question, and let me acknowledge again Tamika, my son, Reverend Jamal Bryant.
All right, y'all. So once again, as you all can see, we are here live. We just received the verdict a couple of hours ago, 2.5 now, just about, in regards to the Chauvin trial, and guilty. He was found guilty on all 3 charges. This is a very, very historic moment, while at the same time in Columbus, Ohio, a very difficult day. We'll talk more about that momentarily. Let's hear from Mark Morial real fast, and then we're going to jump into a conversation.
All that has been said today, this conviction.
All right, that's Mark Morial of the Urban League, of the National Urban League, speaking right now. You're seeing a very rare sight.
And it looks like Joy is having the same type of conversation or thought, right? So we're going to go ahead and jump in. I think we have a guest on the line with us as well. So here's the deal, y'all. For those that are unaware, and I have shared this on our Facebook chat and YouTube as we are live right now on both channels, we received news, the very unfortunate and sad news of a 15-year-old female shot and killed by a police officer here in Southeast Columbus today. very, 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 very tough and disheartening news. It is getting more and more difficult by the minute as it continues to settle in. This is just, I'm getting speechless, and I think y'all know it's hard for me to be speechless, but wow. So I'm getting messages left and right from folks, text messages. These conversations are kicking off all over the country right now. Some people are trying to jump on the line. They're in meetings. They're addressing some of these issues that are going on right here, even in our own city. So they may not be able to join us as they are trying to figure out what is going on as well. So, but for those that are here with us and those that are online, I do want to know, I did ask you all a few questions, and this is going to be what we're going to be discussing. What was the first thing you thought about today in regards to the verdict, right? So when you actually, what did you think first this morning? What did you think the verdict was going to be? Number two is, when you heard the verdict, what did you think or say immediately? And now third is, what's next? What's next is the question. So that's what we're talking about today. And we're going to see if we can get a special guest to jump in and have a conversation about this topic and see what is going on. I think I see Bill on the line. I'm not sure if he's able to unmute, but if so, we're going to start this conversation off here. Let's see what we got. Hold on a second. Let's listen in real quick.
That's a really good point, Katie.
There we go.
The other thing that seemed to be on trial here was the kind of defense that was mounted for Derek Chauvin.
Yeah. All right. So with that being said, so listen, we're going to talk a little bit about what's going on. I want to know what you all think. Let me jump back in here real quick. And let's see. Yeah. So the goal is to find out what you all think about what, took place today. Obviously a very historic trial in Minneapolis after what we've been through over the last year, what we've been through over the last 400 plus years. And, you think about police shootings and police reform and accountability, and then to get the verdict that we did today was a sign of taking a step in the right direction in regards to humanity itself. And now here in our own hometown, we get very tragic news. So really, really difficult. And I am getting all kind of mixed emotions coming to me left and right at this point. So as we see peaceful marches in Minneapolis, crowds are already starting to grow in Columbus, Ohio. So with that being said, we're going to talk about what is going on, what is taking place, and it looks like we also have we just had Tony join us on this live active line. So as we're live once again on YouTube and on Facebook, having a discussion, I'd like to welcome Tony to the line. Tony, we've been asking people for three key things. We want to know this morning, what was the first thing that they thought in regards to the verdict? What did you think the verdict was going to be? Then when you heard the verdict, what did you think and or say? And then the third question of all that's important is, what's next? As we talk about police reform, we talk about legislation, we talk about accountability. And then you may not notice, but what I just shared as well is, unfortunately, we just found out here locally in Columbus that a 15-year-old female was shot and killed by the police today in Southeast Columbus. Yeah, so very, very trying to absorb. It's difficult absorbing that right now. So yeah. So I would like to welcome you to the call, though. I'll open it up.
Yeah, but I appreciate you doing this. And so everybody knows, I'm in St. Louis, Missouri, not too far from Ferguson. So, initially my thoughts were, prior to the verdict being, where I immediately thought the OJ trial. For whatever reason, I thought of that. And I thought things were going to head in the right direction, as far as, not that the OJ trial was the right direction, but just from the standpoint of justice being served in this particular case. And I thought about the divide in this country, like similar to what the OJ case was. Although on this case, it seems that folks are fairly united across racial lines in regards to the verdict and what was to be expected, and this was just an egregious case. But my initial thoughts, and I'll just leave it with this, is that it took all this to get this verdict, and that's what was most, I say, so disappointing about this, is that it took the video, it took 9 minutes, and some seconds on video to do all this. So that's what was. I was relieved and disappointed at the same time, because it took all this to get that, and we know there's hundreds, if not thousands, of cases like this. They just were not caught on video, and as to your point, it's still happening. It happened today, so I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you sharing that. I would have to piggyback on that, right? It's to me, it's interesting and still very concerning that there was still so much anxiety and anticipation that there was a possibility that these charges, right, would not drop the way that they did, right? Especially on all 3 charges, to be found guilty and not acquitted. So it's a tough time, and like you said, 9 minutes and 29 seconds of video footage just to get to this point. But we still see video footage almost every other day, if not every day, of situations, and the verdict doesn't drop this way. So hopefully this is the beginning of some accountability, because I always look at it, Tony, because you're a financial guy, right? You deal with dollars and cents, don't you?
I do. I'm a CFO, so yeah.
You're a CFO. So I think about when these cases go through, right, and even when they get acquitted, and then it's a civil trial, or there's some from the case, there's still money that goes to the family, and as taxpayers, we're paying for these incidents all over the country, like nonstop, in the millions and hundreds of millions of dollars, and a lot of it is due to negligence and the behaviors that we've seen, right? The aggressive behaviors. So
yeah, so there's these costs, and these what I like to call more long-lasting costs, because there are folks that still don't want to come to St. Louis because of what occurred in Ferguson, and folks that are hesitant to come to certain cities because they know, it's everywhere. But if it bubbles up like Ferguson or other places, it's a challenge. And so we've had, there's major corporations that have relocated from St. Louis, and this was kind of like the cherry on the top of why they left. And it's hard for it's hard for companies to recruit people of color to come to St. Louis. And if they do come here, they probably don't stay that long.
Right.
And so it's just something that's very short-sighted for many reasons. The least of all, which is the economically reason, of course. George Floyd lost his life, but it's just unfortunate. But also, once the event occurs, you look and say, was justice served? And so I would think Minnesota, Minneapolis wouldn't be in the same light as Ferguson or St. Louis from that standpoint, because they're probably looked at more along the lines that there's some police reform coming, at least in the pipeline, in that city, as opposed to here in St. Louis, where just recently there was an undercover police officer, African American, that was brutally assaulted by 3 other police officers during some incidents, and those police officers were acquitted.
Wow.
So,
hey, Tony, hold on. Do me a favor. Hold on 1 second. Listen in with us if you have a moment. The president is speaking. We want to.
We'll do.
Real quick.
Who heard the evidence, carried out their civic duty in the midst of an extraordinary moment, under extraordinary pressure. For so many, It feels like it took all of that for the judicial system to deliver a just basic accountability. We saw how traumatic and exhausting just watching the trial was for so many people. Think about it. Those of you who are listening, think about how traumatic it was for you. You weren't there. You didn't know any of the people. But it was difficult, especially for the witnesses who had to relive that day. It's a trauma. On top of the fear so many people of color live with every day when they go to sleep at night and pray for the safety of themselves and their loved ones. Again, as we saw in this trial from the fellow police officers who testified, most men and women who wear the badge serve their communities honorably. But those few who fail to meet that standard must be held accountable, and they were today. One was. No one should be above the law. And today's verdict sends that message. But it's not enough. We can't stop here. In order to deliver real change and reform, we can and we must do more to reduce the likelihood that tragedies like this will ever happen and occur again. To ensure that Black and brown people, or anyone, so they don't fear the interactions with law enforcement, that they don't have to wake up knowing that they can lose their very life in the course of just living their life. They don't have to worry about whether their sons or daughters will come home after a grocery store run, or just walking down the street, or driving their car, or playing in the park, or just sleeping at home. And this takes acknowledging and confronting head-on systemic racism and the racial disparities that exist in policing and in our criminal justice system more broadly. You know, state and local government and law enforcement needs to step up, but so does the federal government. That's why I've appointed the leadership of the Justice Department that I have, that is fully committed to restoring trust between law enforcement and the community they are sworn to serve and protect. I have complete confidence in the Attorney General, General Garland's leadership and commitment. I've also nominated two key Justice Department nominees, Vanita Gupta and Kristen Clark, who are eminently qualified, highly respected lawyers who have spent their entire careers fighting to advance racial equity and justice. Vanita and Kristen have the experience and the skill necessary to advance our administration's priorities to root out unconstitutional policing and reform our criminal justice system. And they deserve to be confirmed. We also need Congress to act. George Floyd was murdered almost a year ago. There's meaningful police reform legislation in his name. You just heard the Vice President speak of it. She helped write it. Legislation to tackle systemic misconduct in police departments, to restore trust between law enforcement and the people they're entrusted to serve and protect. But it shouldn't take a whole year to get this done. In my conversations with the Floyd family, I spoke to them again today, I assure them we're going to continue to fight for the passage of the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act so I can sign the law as quickly as possible. There's more to do. Finally, it's the work we do every day to change hearts and minds as well as laws and policies. That's the work we have to do. Only then will full justice and full equality be delivered to all Americans. And that's what I just discussed with the Floyd family. The guilty verdict does not bring back George. But through the family's pain, they're finding purpose. So George's legacy will not be just about his death, but about what we must do in his memory. I also spoke to Gianna, George's young daughter again. When I met her last year, I've said this before, at George's funeral, I told her how brave I thought she was. And I sort of knelt down to hold her hand. I said, Daddy's looking down on you. He's so proud. She said to me then, I'll never forget it, Daddy changed the world. I told her this afternoon, Daddy did change the world. Let that be his legacy, a legacy of peace, not violence, of justice. Peaceful expression of that legacy are inevitable and appropriate, but violent protest is not. And there are those who will seek to exploit the raw emotions of the moment, agitators and extremists who have no interest in social justice, who seek to carry out violence, destroy property, fan the flames of hate and division, their power to stop this country's march toward racial justice. We can't let them succeed. This is a time for this country to come together, to unite as Americans. There can never be any safe harbor for hate in America. I've said it many times. The battle for soul of this nation has been a constant push and pull for more than 240 years. A tug of war between the American ideal that we're all created equal and the harsh reality that racism has long torn us apart. At our best, the American ideal wins out. So we can't leave this moment or look away thinking our work is done. We have to look at it, we've looked as we did for those 9 minutes and 29 seconds. We have to listen. I can't breathe. I can't breathe. Those are George Floyd's last words. We can't let those words die with him. We have to keep hearing those words. We must not turn away. We can't turn away. We have a chance to begin to change the trajectory in this country. It's my hope and prayer that we live up to the legacy. May God bless you. And may God bless the George Floyd and his family. Thank you for taking the time to be here. This can be a moment of significant change. Thank you.
All right, so we just heard from President Biden, and unfortunately, we missed Vice President Harris when she spoke, but we'll come back. I'm not sure if Tony is still on the line with us to wrap up.
I'm still here, Chef.
All right, awesome. So we're going to jump back to Tony, and then just a heads up, everybody, as I mentioned, we'll have some special guests coming on. We do have representatives from NAACP that will be joining us tonight on the call, so from around the state of Columbus, so a state of Ohio, should I say, and the city of Columbus as well. So with that, Tony, you were sharing about the 3 officers that were acquitted after a situation, altercation with a young man.
So yes, there was a undercover police officer who was doing his duties, and he clearly identified himself as an undercover police officer, and they didn't, and they saw fit to continue to beat him and brutalize him, and so the case went to trial, and unfortunately, all 3 of them were acquitted, and some of them still retain the right to go back to work. So, which was probably, one of the more unfortunate things. I don't think any of them did. I think they, took early retirement or were, decided not to go back to work. But either way, St. Louis is, has had a history of this, and unfortunately continues to be in that space. There's hope that things will change, as I see Congressman Maxine Waters, although she's from California. She went to high school, same high school as my father here in St. Louis. So she's keeping up the good fight there. I just think that, we just need to stay focused and know that this, the justice that was served today is not the end. It's not the end. It's the justice as a process, because as these things come up, it needs to be dealt with, whether it's Dante in Minnesota as well, and was the young lady in Columbus. It just happened today. So unfortunate that these things still need to be dealt with in a manner that's appropriate.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Well said. Yeah, sorry to hear. I mean, and you're seeing it, like you said in St. Louis, firsthand. Y'all have been dealing with quite a bit there as well, and it just continues, right, city by city. But it's time for that accountability to become a real and very frequent thing. Okay. Hold on one second. So, and then I was thinking about, Tony, any thoughts as you, I know you don't have a lot of time and we have some other people getting ready to jump on soon, but in regards to, unfortunately, it did not escalate to this degree, but, Second Lieutenant Nazario in Virginia, with that situation, obviously one of our fraternity brothers that recently went through an altercation with the police that was videoed. And what made me think about it was when you made the comment about the police officers that went back to work, right? And in this situation, that altercation happened and those officers went back to work, right? As if nothing ever happened, until this video was released. It was just as if it was just a regular day, right?
Right.
No accountability, and it just continues to happen. So
even just the statements that he made when he was said that he was afraid, and the officer said, "Well, you need to be afraid." I mean, that statement alone is one that needs to give folks pause as to should this person be on the streets as a police officer.
Yeah.
And it was interesting that my son had some car difficulty 2 days ago, maybe might have been yesterday, and so I had to go get his car stalled on the side of the road. And interesting enough, a police officer came up behind him and stopped, and so he questioned him from his first thing was the first thing the police officer said was, "Hey, is it all right if I walk up beside you?" And I thought that was interesting, and I wonder if that statement would have been said in another environment. The situation turned out all right. The police officer was very professional. He stayed with my son till I got there. But it also makes you aware that they know the situation. They know how tense things are. They know how careful they need to be, and they need to be even more on, not necessarily on edge, but more attentive to the situation. And I don't know the situation at all what happened in Columbus, but it's hard for me to think that a 15-year-old girl could be threatening, and that it took them taking her life to de-escalate the situation.
Yeah, I know. And the same. So thanks for sharing that personal story as well, because that's real talk, and that's happening every day. And it's like that really has to change, and their awareness should be heightened as well, right? Just like we're, we have this sense when we get pulled over, right? And you would expect us the same. And if you can be, humble and respectful, you would expect it to be reciprocated as well, and not turn into the escalations that we continue to see on a regular and frequent basis. So, that's good stuff, man. Good stuff. So, and with that being said, I think we have, let me see, we're going to have a guest jumping on soon. It's great to get people from around the country too, man. So appreciate you jumping in from St. Louis. We had Kevin Powell, the last big conversation we had Kevin Powell from New York jump on, and I just saw a message from him earlier. He was doing the same thing. He has a conversation that kicked off at 7 p.m. out in New York, and there'll be a lot of discussions around this. This is history, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to open it up, so that we have the opportunity, we have the platform to share what we really think and feel, because we don't get to do that openly like we should, and it's not healthy to not be able to do so. So I definitely appreciate you jumping on. I believe
all right, good brother.
Yeah, no doubt about it, man. I think I saw that. We had another member on the line too. All right, cool. That's good stuff. So what do you? So let me ask you this real quick before you jump off. Is what do you think is next, though? Right? We talked about accountability, but you know, we just heard is interesting. You made a few comments, and then right after that, President Biden basically was saying the same thing from our conversation. But what do you think is next and has to be done to really make, you know, substantive, sustainable change? And we're not talking about this, as Jesse said, 55, 65 years from now.
Right. I think it's interesting. I was listening to a podcast from Malcolm Gladwell. He's got why I forget the name. It's the initials are RH, but revisionist history. And so one of the things he was talking about, and he's got a good book on interactions with people. I forget the title of it now, but anyway, one of the things he was talking about in Canada, where he's from.
Yeah.
You know, these things, you know, police officers have different slogans on the side of their vehicles. You know, in the US, you always see protect and serve.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and his, you know, I think in his township where he grew up, it was something along the lines to come alongside the community and enjoy life. Something along that, like very benign, very non-militaristic. And so I think overall it speaks to changing the mindset of how things go about from a police officer service. So I think that's the key.
Yeah. Say that last part again.
So I think that's the key, is that, you know, it's a mindset of how we do law enforcement in general, that it is more community oriented. And, you know, there's going to be some resources, and police officers are asked to do a lot of things, you know, from being social workers and all those other things that they're really not trained to do. Right. But they also need to look at things from a different lens when they come upon these situations. You know, whether it's they're looking at people of color as threats immediately, and looking at people that are the majority as non-threats and policing them differently, or things like that I think needs to be from a mindset perspective, that it's not just this, you know, protect and serve militaristic type mentality, that it's more you're embedded in the community and you're here to, yes, serve the community, but to come alongside them and you know, work to build a better place.
Absolutely. I appreciate you sharing that perspective and joining us as well. I do see that our guest that we mentioned was going to be jumping on. I believe we have Tom Roberts on with us from the NAACP. Is that right, Tom? Can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Good
Thank
evening.
you for having me on.
Thank you for jumping on. We appreciate it. We know this was short notice, but in light of what happened today, I definitely wanted to be able to get you on the line. So thank you for your time. Tony, I want to thank you for jumping on. You're welcome to stay and listen in and participate in the conversation as well. And Brother Roberts, thanks again. So would you tell our audience a little bit about yourself, where you're from and who you represent, and then let's talk about your thoughts of today's verdict.
We'll be glad to. I'm Tom Roberts, the president of the Ohio Conference of the NAACP, and I reside in Dayton, but I represent the 30+ units in the state of Ohio.
Wow, outstanding, and out of Dayton, huh?
Out of Dayton, yes.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us. So, you know, there are three key questions we have been asking our audience so far to share with us. We are, so that you know, we are live on both Facebook and on YouTube. But we wanted to know, like, you know, the verdict or the trial has been going on for the last few weeks. This morning, I know a lot of us woke up with anxiety, wondering about the deliberations. We've been asking, what were your thoughts before the verdict? What were your thoughts once you heard the verdict? And of course, what's next? And I know with the work that you do and the NAACP does every day, I'm sure you have things to share around those questions.
Yes, I do. And first of all, I woke up this morning, like so many people in Ohio and in the country, with anticipation, hoping that justice would be served, but knowing that juries throughout the country and Ohio have failed to serve people of color. So I was excited, first of all, Kevin, to see the verdict. The verdict was, for me and others, a collective breath of relief. You know, because I think we all were holding our breaths, waiting to see what the shoe was going to drop, and and once the shoe dropped, what would be the verdict. we've been surprised so often. I mean, the evidence was clear, but so often jurors have not lived up to the evidence. But in this case, the jury did follow the evidence. And
Absolutely.
I think the third piece, justice has been served. You know, and however, as we reflect on the death of George Floyd, we also have to reflect on the lives of many other people in Ohio. Tamir Rice, in here in Beaver Creek, the loss of a young man at a Walmart. We have to reflect on that. And our units have been working very hard across the state, at the State House, you know, various committees at the state level, but also locally on police reform. A lot of work has to be done, but I would say that justice was served today, and commend people like the Attorney General, Keith Ellis, who had the courage to push for this indictment, to push for the local prosecutors, and given all of the information he could to this body so they could come up with the verdict. And the jury, follow the evidence and making a good decision. So for me, I want to commend those over in who made the decision, but also encourage civil rights leaders and local law enforcement elected officials to follow the guidance, the wisdom, the courage of Keith Ellison. You know, we all have found ourselves in positions, but I think what the Attorney General did was extremely important. And as we sat there and watched what over 8 minutes and 15 seconds of shock and horror, the verdict was well within what the evidence showed.
Yep, absolutely, and well said. And thank you for sharing your perspectives on that. Obviously, you know, with I think it's 2 days, if not even 2 full days of deliberations, you know, the jury, as you said, they followed the evidence. And even though there was some anxiety and anticipation as to what could happen based off of all we've seen not happen before, finally, as you kicked it off, justice has been served. So as we talk about that and we talk about, you know, reform, and I don't know if you heard the news yet today, but in Columbus, it's a very anticlimactic day for us. We, you know, shortly after we heard this announcement, the news started to drop that a 15-year-old female was shot and killed by a police officer today in Southeast Columbus. So while we don't have the facts or any details yet as to what transpired, it's just so disheartening, discouraging, and hearts drop. You know, it's like, you know, we keep saying in Columbus, enough is enough. And around the country, we say enough is enough. And every time you take one step, in this case, today was a major step, then we hear something like that. So,
you know, Kevin, it will be a year, I think, May 24th, the death of George Floyd. And we have to push our legislature to concentrate on police reform and not voter suppression. You know, they're spending a great deal of their time dealing with voter suppression in the state capitol, but also in Washington. You know, the George Floyd legislation needs to be passed.
Right.
It'll be a year, May of next month, May 24th. So it's up to us to push our legislatures to focus on the right thing and not to focus on, you know, they have a bill in Columbus right now where they can focus on, if you take the picture like the young lady did of George Floyd and the police officer turns to you, then you will be charged with obstructing justice. Had that young lady not been there, taken that picture, we would not have found out the truth of what really happened to George Floyd. So we need to get our legislative body to focus on right public policy and not suppress the vote and suppress freedom of demonstration, you know, which is a cornerstone of the civil rights movement. Freedom of protest, you know, and actually being able to film what's going on. So we'd encourage people to make sure your legislators know what we need to tell them as African Americans, as Black Ohioans.
Yeah. So I have a question for you, because one of the things that we try to do on Columbus Black is we try to simplify some of these messages for our audience so everybody understands. So when you say we need to make sure from a legislator standpoint that they know, and we need to be pushing, how do we push? Because we go vote, right? So we go and we vote them in.
Yes.
And then it's like, we don't do anything after that, right? We don't go to city council
Yes.
meetings. We don't reach out to our legislators. We don't do sit downs and town halls and make sure that they do town halls on a regular basis. So how do we, because we have to do different,
Yes.
right? How do we as a community, not just NAACP members, I mean, holistically, how do we actually take that step to make sure our legislators are also being held accountable and doing what we know is right public policy?
Kevin, I served 20 years in the General Assembly, and a state representative and a senator. And I looked forward to hearing testimony and getting letters from my constituents. Sometimes people think, get a form letter and send in the form letter 23 times. I want to hear 23 different perspectives on an issue. Speaker Rice used to say when I served there, that building across the street is the people's house. You need to know you can come to Columbus. You can testify for or against a bill. And right now we're saying testify against those bad bills. You can put in testimony. You can write your legislator. You can invite your legislator to your community meetings and hold them accountable for what they do. Yes, we simply vote and walk away. No, it's an accountability factor that says once we elect you, you have to actually represent us. And so that is why I'm encouraging people to write their legislators, to call them, have them come to your community forums, your neighborhood meetings, and hold them accountable for their votes across the street there in the State House.
Outstanding, outstanding. I don't know if it could have been said any simpler than that, y'all. Listen, he's been on both sides and he's telling you what you can and need to do. And with that level of experience, we have to take heed and do it. All right. So
exactly.
I appreciate that. And we appreciate you jumping on. While we have you, and we won't take up a lot of your time, we do have some other guests, I believe, from the NAACP that's coming on from around the state. But while we have you, are there any other sentiments that you would like to share with our audience? Any additional thoughts while we actually have you on the platform?
Well, I think this verdict tells us that justice can take place, but police reform needs to happen, not only at the state level, but locally. I refocused myself about a year ago in working on city councils, working on things that we could do at the local level. And so that would be the other thing. If your community is not engaged in some kind of police reform at the local level, where citizens can be involved, then I think we need to focus at that point. So not only we need to focus on Washington, Columbus, but actually police reform at the local level, because often that is where the problems are at the local level. So I would encourage listeners to put together a police reform packet, as the Dayton unit did here, and I think Columbus did, and others across the state, to put together a reform packet and push it so the constituents, the citizens, can actually see reform in their communities.
Outstanding. Look at all those. So by the way, what we call on this show, I do different shows throughout the week. We call those gem drops. And when you drop gems and all that knowledge, I start going like this. So our audience, when they see me do this, they know gems are being dropped. And those were amazing, because we need to make sure we're very involved. And as you said, at every single level. And what I would say to help our audience is, when is your local city council meeting, right? And if you don't know the answer to that question, that's the first thing you need to find out, and then get involved and get engaged, because we all should know that, right? That's like the weekly meeting at work that we have, or the family meeting. We should know when is that city council meeting, so we can push these things forward, especially around police reform. Thank you.
And I think the other one is, many people don't know who their state representative or state senator are. And so after find out the local council members, that they need to find out who represents them in the state house across the street there.
That's right. And as you said, whose house is that, right?
Yes, it's the people's house. Exactly. And the word is we the people. When justice is served, we the people benefit from it. Not just African Americans, not just Black people, but the entire race of people benefit when justice is served. So those are my final words, and I appreciate you having me on, and appreciate spending some time with you this evening.
Same here. I appreciate each and every one of those words, and thank you for your time. And I'm sure that the people will be watching. So you have a wonderful evening. All right.
All right. Thanks.
All right. Thank you. Stay blessed. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
All right, folks. So there you have it. And we had the honor and the pleasure of having Brother Tom Waters with us today, and from Dayton, Ohio. Okay. So Tom Roberts, I said Waters, excuse me. Tom Roberts with us from Dayton, Ohio, and representing NAACP. And he shared some serious gem drops with us. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back and I'm going to see what they actually have going on. We also had Tony Lloyd, no relation. So yep, Kevin Lloyd, Tony Lloyd, but he is a close brother of mine, brother from another mother, Mother Tuskegee, that is, and a brother in the bond of Kappa Alpha Psi as well. So excited to have him join us a little earlier and share some tidbits from St. Louis. As you all can see, I'm coming to you all from Venture Suite, right? So you all can see in the backdrop, excited to be there. So ColumbusBlack.com represented once again. And we're going to go ahead and do a screen share. Let's see what is going on. We heard earlier, and we missed this part with Vice President Harris, but we did get an opportunity to capture some of the messages from President Biden as he spoke about some of his appointees that he has in place to help address the police reform situation in our country. But what we just heard from Brother Tom is that we need to get involved locally. And that's how we actually make change. So as we prepare for others to join us in a little while, we're gonna go ahead and jump back and let's see what is going on. The other thing that I had said that I wanted to share with you all from earlier today is the fact that, you know, unfortunately in the city of Columbus, we actually lost a 15-year-old female. We don't have the details as of yet. Sounds like she was shot by a police officer and passed away at the hospital from what we can tell at this point. So we will obviously learn more. And in the meantime, we are awaiting some additional guests that are looking to join us very soon. So as we wait for those guests to come online, we can see what's going on. You know, President Biden, as you all can see in the headline here, talked about accountability, and that's a must. But the only way accountability happens is by us being involved. If we're not involved, accountability does not exist. So we have got to take the responsibility of doing what we know needs to be done besides just voting, but we need to also make sure that we are in communication with our city council members. We need to make sure we're in communication with our legislators as well, okay? The ones that are making the decisions on our behalf. I love the way he said, we the people, that's what it says, right? It's documented, that's what it says, and it's the people's house, right? So we need to make sure we're doing what we need to do. So while we're waiting on our next guest, I'm going to ask that you all that are live with us online, if you have a question, be sure to ask it in the chat. But also remember, we had 3 questions. Our 3 questions were, what did you think the verdict was going to be today when you got up this morning? Then once you heard the verdict, what did you think or say? What was the first thing you thought or you said when you heard the verdict? I'm hearing from some people that they said justice is served. I want to know, what did you think? And you can drop that in the chat and let us know. In addition to that, we want to know what's next. What do you think has to happen next? And the reason why we really ask that, especially for those of you that are joining us here in Columbus, Ohio, is because of the fact that while we heard this verdict that dropped right before 5 o'clock, we also found out shortly thereafter about the killing by a police officer here in Columbus of a 15-year-old female. So while we, felt like we were taking one step forward, that one was a big blow to us, especially here locally. It's just been really, really difficult, as you all know, right? So with that being said, we got a couple of people that are that just recently joined us. Feel free to let us know your thoughts in regards to, once again, what did you think the verdict was going to be? What did you think or say once the verdict was out there? And then also, what do you think is next? We want to know. And while we wait on our next guest, we're going to see what they have going on MSNBC right now.
There are, probably easily 1,000 people who are proud of this intersection, who have come out and really a kind of elated atmosphere. And they were walking through the streets chanting. There was a band playing, and what in New Orleans would have been, they would have called a second line. There's a band playing, there are people marching behind it chanting, got that justice, now we got that peace. And so that's really the mood here. One of the things that you hear, though, when you talk to people is that this is just one part of their struggle. There are many things that have to happen. Obviously, for people who are thinking about the particular details of this case, there is another set of trials for the 3 other officers who were there that day, and that will start in August. And that will have implications, obviously, for how people view the ultimate outcome of how much justice was attained. And then there are a whole raft of other things we could get into about the future of the police department in Minneapolis, the political leadership. There's no shortage of questions tonight.
Yeah. Oh, and I really do want to get you to sort of zoom out just a little bit, because
I've heard that, right? So it's the same thing, right? Like it continues. It's a situation where this was a step, but there's more to be done, and especially here, as I mentioned earlier, so locally we know that there's a lot to be done. If you're online right now, you want to join the conversation, feel free to jump in the chat. If you want to jump online, you have something to say, I will send you the link. If you send me a message, we'll go ahead and get you on so you can speak your voice and let us know what's on your mind and what's on your heart. Join the conversation. We know we have something to say. Some things may be positive, some things not so positive, because it's a very mixed day in regards to justice being served and then another loss here. So that's kind of where we are at this point. We definitely have we have a couple more members of the NAACP that's going to be joining us. I think prior to 8:30, so we're going to hang tight for a little bit. We'll listen a little bit to see what they have going on with Joy Reid on MSNBC. And then we'll go ahead and we'll jump back into our conversations with our guests.
Ignited a political crisis, and for political power is far above the police officer who fired the shot. You could say for Walter Scott, about stopping the taser near his dying body happened in the context of those 9 people who were killed in Charleston.
We are
the white supremacists.
We are losing our connection, unfortunately. And I really wanted to hear the rest of what Jelani Cobb had to say. Okay, we're gonna try to get a connection back. So we're gonna hold you for just one moment. If we do have time, we'll try to come back to you, Jelani. But I want to get in Congressman Cori Bush of Missouri, who I believe is also ready to go. And I do want to also get your impressions of what we saw today. You, of course, are from the place where the Michael Brown incident happened, and there was nothing. There was no justice for his family. What do you make of what happened today in the case of George Floyd?
Today we saw accountability happen. Today we saw what we've been wanting to see every single time, one of us is murdered at the hands of police, but what we really want to see is true justice, which means life. Like don't touch our lives. That's what we want to see. True justice means that it would have meant that George Floyd would still be alive. It would mean that Dante Wright would still be alive. It would mean that Michael Brown would still be here. That's what true justice is. And so right now I want to be like, yay, yay, that thing happened. But you know what? what should have happened, but we should be sitting here talking about something totally different. Let's talk about the climate crisis. Let's talk about clean water and clean air. Let's talk about what's other things that are happening in our community. Why are we talking about being happy that somebody that somebody has guilty charges because they took one of our lives? You know, that's the issue. Like, we have to change this conversation. You know, why are we catching it on the back end? No, we have to do the work on the front end. And let me say this, Joy, I'm so sick and tired of hearing the good cop, bad cop thing. And I know I said it over and over again before, but let me just lay it out again. There should not be any good cops and bad cops. Why is that a discussion? There should be cops. I mean, if we're going to have cops, there should be cops. Let that be that. Yeah. We don't go in and say, oh, that's a good nurse. Now that's a bad nurse. Oh, that's a good pilot. Oh, that's a bad pilot. That's a good chef. That's a bad chef. We don't do that. So why do police officers get that? No. If your job is to protect and serve, if your job is to take care of the community that in which you serve, then do that. Not going after targeting people who look like me simply because we look like a threat because you have a problem.
Yeah. Well, you know, and Congresswoman, you make a really good point. I mean, if there was a restaurant chain that killed a certain percentage of its customers, you wouldn't say, well, you know, that one cook was good, but at least the rest of them, you know, that one cook was bad, but the rest of them are good. You wouldn't want to pay to have that in your community, feeding people and killing a certain number of people. I wonder, how do we back out of this system where Black communities are the ones getting ticketed, and the tickets and the fines are funding the police and their pensions to then turn around and kill people for nothing when they're pulling them over for these crimes that are essentially revenue generating, minor incidents in which people die?
Well, first of all, we have to quit giving the police a pass at every dang thing. Like, let's start with that. They don't get a pass at every single thing because their job is to protect and serve. And you know what? You know who else serves? Firefighters. You know who else serves? Nurses and store clerks. And you know who else serves? Teachers. You know, all of us have a part in serving the community. And so, you know what? They don't get this extra, this blanket of comfort. You know, no, you should be just as held accountable as anybody else. You know, and so that, and then police unions. I'm so glad. Let me say, we just elected in St. Louis the first Black woman mayor for St. Louis. And hopefully we will be able to do the work together and deal with our police unions that don't care for all the people. They don't care for Black and brown people in our communities. They don't care for the indigenous folks in our communities. And so we will do this work together. So that's one. And then the other thing is alternatives to policing. Let's remember, police don't have to be the ones to show up when someone is having some type of a issue with their mental health. They don't have to be the ones to show up. How do I know? I'm a mental health nurse, been there, done that. I see how we can do other things. There are other options. We just have to go ahead and think that thing through and actually put it to work on the municipal level, on the state level, and the federal level. That's why I'm in Congress, to work on the federal level and bring that voice. And this too. When we talk about police showing up for some have said, oh, well, you know, you really want police to show up at certain, for certain calls. Well, you know what? There are other people that are paid that actually have, you know, the training to handle certain situations. Why not let them do their jobs? There are social workers and therapists that would love to actually take care of the community that way. So you know, as an activist and as a legislator, I'm saying alternatives to policing need to happen now. We need to have those real conversations.
And the last question I've asked this of all of the members of Congress, I've been very lucky to get 3 members of Congress in one night. So I want to thank all of you for doing this.
That was a follow-up.
The George Floyd Act, is it enough?
Right after Tony Lloyd came in from St. Louis. What timing? Let's see what she says.
I know we need to add some things. That's just one piece of legislation, you know, that is the start. Like one thing I said earlier today, it's like we just flicked the lock open. You know, it's the beginning. It's not the end all be all, just like there's no other legislation where it couldn't be built upon, you know, so that handles something. And let me tell you, the qualified immunity that is going to help with is going to be that thing that we really, really need. So, but that's the start. So we're going to start somewhere and get us something, because you know what? This is the thing, Joy. It wasn't fixed before. before we got here. So to say, oh, this isn't enough and that, I get it, but we gotta have something. And so while I'm here, I'm putting my mouth and my feet and my hands to that and to other legislation to make sure that we save Black lives. We're gonna save Black lives in every single way that we can. And we're doing that now.
Congresswoman Cori Bush, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for the work that you do, the advocacy, the passion. I really appreciate you taking some time to be with us here tonight. This is a big night. It is an important night. So thank you for spending some time. Really appreciate it. That is tonight's readout. We have a lot more to talk about because this was an extraordinary situation that we just don't see that often. And I thank you all for riding with us through this show because this is not the normal show, obviously the way that we would normally do the readout. But you just really need to, for a moment, settle this in your spirit. Police officers do not get convicted, particularly of killing Black folks. It just barely doesn't happen. I've been covering Black Lives Matter cases since 2011. I have not seen this number of police officers testify against other police officers. I have not seen this,
right,
level of
So here we go. So we're right back at it, right? So as I mentioned earlier, tonight has been a very, very difficult and challenging emotional night, especially those of us in Columbus that have dealt with hearing this news in regards to the verdict earlier. And now we have also been informed of a police shooting here in Columbus, Ohio, that involved a 15-year-old female and who was pronounced dead at the hospital from what I understand. And we don't have all the details. It is my understanding as I keep getting messages, and this is not fact yet, that, there's some suggestions that it was an inappropriate shooting. We'll obviously be finding out the details of that and get the facts. But obviously that's the word that is spreading at this point, and we definitely look forward to learning more. But, one thing about this is, I asked the 3 questions in regards to what did you think the verdict would be when you woke up this morning? I asked the second question, which is what did you think or say when you heard the verdict that dropped this afternoon, the guilty verdict for Derek Chauvin, and then in the murder of George Floyd. And then the third question was what's next? And, the thing about this is us wondering, I believe, as a community, is this the first step in the right direction as a country? So then you think about accountability for those who have continued to do this same type of heinous act in Black and brown people, especially without weapons. Those that have not been in a situation where they are necessarily causing harm, causing any type of damage, but being held to the degree that they have been held and or killed or murdered. And now with technology and us being able to see these things firsthand, it has given us the view that we need to finally see. But even with that being said, it's still the anxiety of wondering what would take place. So with that, I had mentioned that we had another guest that was going to be jumping on the line, and I think we're actually at that point. So I'm gonna ask you all to stay tuned as we continue to discuss, the trial, the verdict, and what you all think. We want to know, right? The platform has been established for you all to be able to share your perspectives and your thoughts. So feel free to weigh in on Facebook or on YouTube. We're live on both channels. I believe we have Dr. Derek Forward on the line with us, I believe. And we look forward to him being able to share some information, some thoughts, and some perspectives with us as well this evening. So with that being said, we're gonna keep plugging along. I think you all may have seen, we had earlier on tonight, we had Anthony Lloyd join us from St. Louis to talk about, his perspectives, especially not being too far from Ferguson, and dropping some information and personal perspectives. And we talked about some of the financial impact and accountability, but also the impact that it's had to that city, right? And even for companies trying to relocate people to St. Louis and them not wanting to come. And I think we all saw that there were warnings out there that if you were Black to not
Now the cause of justice is in your hands. And when I say your hands, I mean the hands of the people of the United States. The people who stopped and raised their voices on May 25th, 2020, were a bouquet of humanity. A phrase I stole from my friend, Jerry Blackwell. A bouquet of humanity. Old, young, men and women, black and white. Why did they stop? They didn't know George Floyd. They didn't know he had a beautiful family. They didn't know he had been a great athlete. And they didn't know he was a proud father, or he had people in his life who loved him. They stopped and raised their voices, and they even challenged authority because they saw his humanity. They stopped and they raised their voices because they knew that what they were seeing was wrong.
Barack and Michelle Obama released a statement about the trial, saying in part, today, a jury in Minneapolis did the right thing. If we're being honest with ourselves, we know that true justice is about much more than a single verdict in a single trial. True justice requires we come to terms with the fact that Black Americans are treated differently every day. It requires us to recognize that millions of our friends, family, and fellow citizens live in fear that their next encounter with law enforcement could be their last. It requires us to do the sometimes thankless, often difficult, but always necessary work of making the America we know more like the America we believe in. Early this evening, President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris addressed the nation, calling for Americans to continue the work and movement sparked by Floyd's death.
Today, we feel a sigh of relief. Still, it cannot take away the pain. A measure of justice isn't the same as equal justice. This verdict brings us a step closer, and the fact is, we still have work to do. We still must reform the system.
I can't breathe. Those are George Floyd's last words. We can't let those words die with him. We have to keep hearing those words. We must not turn away. We can't turn away. We have a chance to begin to change the trajectory in this country. It's my hope and prayer that we live up to the legacy.
Wow.
Whatever bit of relief or solace.
There you have it, right? And just as that said, one step in the right direction, feeling as if, progress is being made. But as President Obama said, we have work to do. This is not it, right? Like one step in the right direction is not it. We have to keep on going, and things are different for us every day. And now we have another situation. Heavy. I keep getting, it seems like the word is definitely spreading in regards to the shooting here in Columbus today, because I keep getting messages every few minutes about it. And people are trying to make sure that I'm aware. And here we are, we're trying to make sure everybody else is aware. And that's what this platform is for, is to make sure that we can share our voice and say, what's going on, what we're thinking, how we're feeling, and then move forward to take the steps and action necessary to make the differences and the change that we need to, because things have changed, right? It can't continue as they are. So with that being said, it sounds like there are crowds that are growing here in Columbus. related to the shooting that took place in Southeast Columbus. I'm sure that we'll be getting more information soon. I'll check the social media wires and see what's going on out there, because we know that it's a very active site right now, from my understanding. We do have one more guest that's supposed to join us shortly in about another 5 or 6 minutes. So we're going to hang tight, and then we're going to go ahead and we're going to wrap up. Yeah, here it goes. Oh man, it's not let's see what it say. Angry crowd in Columbus grows. And I'm gonna try to see if I can get you all some more information, as I said a little earlier. Let's see what we can get going on here, and try to fill you all in on a little bit of information, because it's definitely a very, very tough and difficult day right now. So I'm gonna check to see if any of our local channels may have some activity for us to actually see what may be going on before we go live through Columbus Black on site at the actual event that's taking place. All right. So let's see what we have going on. Doesn't look like there's too much activity yet on the local news, from what I can tell. So we'll see what we can find, and then we'll go from there. So, but going back to it, everybody, it's a pretty tough day here in Columbus after receiving, some positive information in regards to justice being served based on what we witnessed. But then we found out about some more information. So really, really difficult day overall. So what I would like to do is we have a guest that's jumping on right now on the line with us. And we'll go ahead and keep the conversation going in a moment. Brother Derek, I think your audio, there you go. I think your audio's on. How are you this evening? Are you able to hear us? I think we're still working on audio. As soon as we get the audio, we'll have our special guest on the line with us. And then I believe we have one more. And then we'll keep this conversation going. All right, Derek, can you hear us okay?
Yes.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Good evening.
Good evening, how you doing?
Doing great, doing great. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right, awesome, awesome. So listen, so what we've been doing is we've been on tonight, and we decided to go live in light of the verdict that was dropped earlier today in regards to the Chauvin trial in the murder of George Floyd. And we've been speaking and asking our audience to join us on social. By the way, we are live on Facebook and on YouTube, just so that you're aware. And the three things that I've been asking people is, one, what did they think the verdict was going to be, this morning before we actually heard the verdict? I've been asking them, once they heard the verdict, what did you think and or say? What was that first thing you thought or said? And then the third thing is, what's next? And I think that's the most important one, is what's next. And I know with the work that you do with the NAACP, I'm sure you have some perspectives on what's next, but definitely we would love to know, what did you think was going to be the verdict? And then what did you think after you heard?
Well, I can tell you that the evidence was overwhelming. So I thought for certain that the verdict was going to be guilty, guilty and guilty again. Because quite simply, the way that the prosecution laid out the evidence, laid out the facts, the strategic way that they walked the jury through every piece of evidence from prior to George's, well, first of all, I'm gonna say my condolences to the George Perry Floyd family on behalf of our, Dayton Unit NAACP family here in Dayton, Ohio. But the day was a Jubilee day for their family. It was a Jubilee day for America. It was a Jubilee day for the world. Because at the end of the day, the world seen George Floyd lose his life. The world seen him take his last breath. The world saw that. And I was very humbled and glad to see that the state of Minnesota decided to broadcast the entire trial on Global Network. So the same way that we seen him die, the same way we have an opportunity to hear the evidence. Everybody can hear the evidence. Watch the trial, watch the verdict, and have some type of peace of mind and some closure. So based upon everything that I witnessed, I can tell you that I knew that the verdict was going to be guilty, guilty, guilty.
All right.
But then you always got to say, what if, right? It's always what if. Because you could have had that one person, that one juror that what cause trouble and have a hung jury. Then even at the last moment, the judge, our civil rights activist Maxine Waters making comments because she's an activist, and an activist is going to tell people to fight. So for the judge to come back and say that it could cause mistrial. Now, I was nervous about that. I was never nervous about the verdict, but I was nervous about him talking about it could lead to a mistrial.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so first of all, thank you for sharing your perspectives on that. We actually had earlier today, we had Tom Roberts on as well. And, he shared, his initial thoughts was justice is served. And as you said, guilty, 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 right? So I want to thank you for sharing that. Now, one of the things, and I apologize for this when you came on as we were working through some of the technical, is I did not give you the pleasure and the opportunity of introducing yourself. And I apologize for that. So would you mind letting our audience know who you are and what it is that you do as well?
Okay, thank you there. So my name is Dr. Derek L. Ford, president of the Dayton unit of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, where I have served for the past 15 years. So I'm actually my 8th elected 2-year term. I also serve the Ohio Conference of the NAACP as second vice president, in which I've been in this leadership role for about the past 8 years. And then also served nationally with the NAACP on the National Life Membership Committee, as well as chairman of the Credentials Committee. So I have my bachelor's degree, of course, from Central State University, right there in Wilberforce, Ohio. Go Marauders.
All right.
And, I have my master's degree in administration and organization from International Apostolic University, and I have a doctorate degree from International Apostolic University. So it's, but those titles really don't mean nothing. To me, it's about getting boots on the ground, getting the work done, and making it happen.
Absolutely, absolutely. So first of all, I would like to commend you on all that you have done, especially in the leadership roles that you've been in, especially for the tenure you've been in. So it says a lot about the commitment and dedication to our people in our community. So thank you, first of all. Second of all, I want to give you props for being an HBCU alum. I am a Tuskegee alumni grad, so got to give you some love there as well, as you know. And then in regards to some of the work that you've been doing, I don't know, and I hate to share this information with you, unfortunately, but in Columbus, Ohio, and I don't know if you heard the news, so within about an hour and a half of us receiving the verdict, we were also informed that a 15-year-old female was shot and killed by a police officer in the southeast side of Columbus today. So it's been a very, very difficult and emotional couple of hours here in our city, and then obviously in our state that you're in. You know, so when I asked the question, what's next, and we start to talk about police reform and legislation and accountability for our legislators as well as our police officers, can you share your thoughts, your perspectives, and help us understand what we as a community need to do to keep pushing forward as well?
Well, last year, in light of George Floyd's death, we, the Dayton Unit NAACP, came out with an 8-point strategy on criminal justice reform and police accountability. And what we did is we've had meetings with all law enforcement, well, majority of the law enforcement agencies throughout Montgomery County, Ohio, which is our jurisdiction. And that 8-point strategy was shared with the Mayors and Managers Association. So that's all the mayors and managers throughout the Dayton region. It was shared with Montgomery County's Criminal Justice Committee that's made up of judges, prosecutors, police officers, lawyers, attorneys. We shared an 8-point strategy with the Montgomery County Association of Chiefs of Police, by which we meet quarterly with them. We have made some progress with our 8-point strategy, but it's about building relationships. Yeah. So when I talk about building relationships, I'm talking about you can build relationships and still hold people accountable. But when you if you're not building relationships and you're just antagonistic, nobody is going to want to meet with you. So you got to have that balance to know how to use your business acumen to get your point across and still hold people accountable. So we have had an opportunity to have several of our law enforcement agencies in Montgomery County, due to our 8-point strategy, to now have body cams or in the process of getting body cams. We have had several of our law enforcement agencies to ban knee holds and chokeholds. We have had some of our law enforcement agencies, or cities, to actually implement or in the process of implementing a citizens review board that has subpoena powers. It's those kinds of things and actions that I think that you need to be cognizant of. Just like as we know, the George Floyd Policing Act, is on the table right now in Congress. House resolution, I think it's 7120, if I'm not mistaken. So people need to call the U.S. Congress people to urge them to pass the George Floyd Policing Act, House Resolution 7120. We need to make certain that all of our activists, and you know what, I want to take this time to applaud all of the street soldiers, individuals who are in the street, especially the ones who do things peaceably, right, and exercise their constitutional rights in terms of peaceful assembly. I want to applaud all of those brothers and sisters, white and black, Jew, Gentile, whatever their nationality may be. I want to applaud them for getting out there demanding justice, because we need people in every walk of life, in every sector, as long as we are all focused on the same goal, and that's the goal of justice in this particular case. No matter how we get there, as long as we do it peaceably, because that's what Martin Luther King lived for, and that's what he died for, is to do things in the name of justice, but do it honorably and peaceably. So as we continue to trot down the road of justice, we need to make certain that all of those same activists are registered to vote.
That's right.
Those same activists are going to the polls and voting in every single election. There's no such thing as an off-year election. You need those same activists, to understand the judges that's on the ticket, and that they're voting for those particular judges. Understand those judges' background, because those are the ones that's sentencing you, sentencing me, sentencing our loved ones. And we really need to understand how the judicial system works. And that is very important to know who you're voting for or who you're not voting for when it comes down to judges. So voting is very critical. It's a very critical in one of the most prized possessions that we have as American citizens. So we want to make certain that you're exercising your right to vote at every single election, because you need to understand, if you want to have a championship team, if you want to win a Super Bowl, if you want to win an NBA championship,
right?
If you want to win the World Series, then that you're going to have some offense and you're going to have some defense, and so you need both elements of the team clicking on all cylinders in order to get that championship. So put that in the context of the political world. The political world, you have an offense and defense, such as a Senate, and you have a House of Representatives.
Right.
So you have a House of Representatives and you have a Senate. So no matter who you vote for, I don't care what your party affiliation is, whether that's you're Republican, whether that's you're Democrat, vote your entire ticket. Vote your entire ticket to understand that if half of your team is not in the game, nothing is going to change. So we need to understand that as voters, as registered voters, as soon-to-be voters, that you need to vote your entire ticket, no matter what your affiliation is. Because think about Obama in 2008. He had his office and he had his defense. He had his House and he had his Senate.
Right.
So he was able to accomplish many things in his first 2 years in office. But what happened in 2010? Many of us fell asleep at the wheel.
Yeah.
So he lost the one of the two chambers. And what happened then? It was all stalemate. Couldn't get anything else accomplished. 2 years later, he won re-election.
What?
However, he didn't have a team. The team was still divided. The team was not working towards the same end goal. Then what happened 2 years later after that? He lost his entire team because now he has no Senate, he has no House. So he's just out there on the island by himself.
Right.
So we need to understand the process of voting and why it's important to vote for your local mayors, your state reps, your state senators, your school board people. We need to understand the importance of that. As Black Americans, understand to vote your entire ticket at every single election. That's what's next. That's what's next for us. And we need to take that very seriously.
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. Thank you for dropping what we call gem drops. So on Columbus Black, when we have people on and they start dropping those nuggets and those gems like you did, we start doing these because he's dropping those gems, y'all. And he was dropping them left and right. I was just listening. I didn't want to interrupt, but there was many of those drops. So we appreciate you dropping that. I think that's a very, very clear message. And it's one of the things that we really try to do is simplify things for our audience to the basic fundamentals of what we need to do to make the change happen. And you made it as clear as I think it could be. So thank you for that. I think you may have noticed we also had Dr. Geraldine Nelson jump on the line.
How you doing, Madam President?
Hi, how are you?
All right.
And I'm a proud product of Columbus Public Schools, Columbus, Lynn, McKinley, to be exact.
Okay. Let it be known. Outstanding. So with that saying, Dr. Forward, I don't know if you need to or would like to stay on. If you would like to, feel free to. We don't want to keep you too long tonight, but we definitely want to thank you for your time and the nuggets and the knowledge that you shared with us. But also in addition to that, as I mentioned earlier, we want to thank you for the work that you have done and that you're doing now, and I know you will continue to do. So thank you so much.
And thanks for having me on. And anytime that I can lend a speech, I'm just a phone call away. Tiffany knows how to get in contact with me. I'm very serious about this work, the work of civil and human rights. And I'm very passionate about it. So just as passionate, I was just having a conversation with somebody the other day, just as passionate as public elected officials are about their respective seats. It's the same amount of passion that civil rights servants, civil rights activists, civil rights advocates have that they were passionate about what we do and the work that we do for free.
That's right.
And that's what people need to understand. The work that we do with the NAACP on the local and state level is for free. Yep. It's because the Lord has given each one of us certain knowledge, skills, and abilities, KSAs, to help people. Right. So we give of ourselves, our time, to help other people. So that I'm gonna leave it there. I'm gonna give Madam President her day in the sun. And even though the sun is dropping right now, it's getting a little cold outside.
He's a preacher. He's a preacher now. So,
right. His preaching is good. It works.
All right. So take care, everybody, and thank you very much.
Be safe out there.
Thank you so much for those KSAs. All right, dropping those gems. Take care, brother.
Right,
thank you so much. All right.
Take care. All right.
All right. So, and with that said, Dr. Nelson, thank you so much for joining us. As he mentioned, Madam President. So, would you mind, for our audience, would you mind introducing yourself and let us know who you are, what it is that you do, and any positions that you hold, obviously. And then we'll go into a few questions that I have in light of the verdict and what we heard today. And I want to share some other stuff we've heard here in Columbus today as well.
Okay. Yes, as I mentioned earlier, I am a product of Columbus Public Schools. I'm very proud to say that, Columbus North Side. My family still resides there in Columbus, and I came off to Kent State University. I hold a PhD in higher ed and administration. So I've worked 28 years as an administrator in higher ed. So working with Upward Bound programs, which is free college programs.
I'm a UP alumni from New York City, so thank you for all.
Okay, so you understand that.
Absolutely.
And I love the Upward Bound, those federal trial programs, but also worked as an associate dean, where I work with those students who are exploratory. But my passion has been about education. Worked about 9 years out in New York and New Jersey.
Okay.
But I retired from Kent State University, where I served. In my last years, I served in human resources.
Okay.
And working with all of our different 5 groups, all the different groups that we have within the workforce. Okay. And so I'm really pleased. I've been the president of the Portage County AACP for over 6 years. I'm also a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated.
Okay. I should have known. And we can't miss it.
And I serve on the board of a couple of boards here locally, Community Action Council, have served on the Urban League, but always have been out working in the community. I was taught that as someone growing up in the greater Columbus area.
Okay, outstanding. As a member of Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated, it's a pleasure and honor to have you with us this evening.
All right.
All right, good stuff. So with that being said, so today what we asked people to do, so that you know what we did, right? So ColumbusBlack, and what we did say, we're going to go live on both Facebook and on YouTube, and we're going to open up the platform. We're going to have some special guests on. You happen to be one of those special guests this evening. So I thank Tiffany for reaching out to you to have you join us. And we wanted to get, your perspective, right? And we wanted our community to have an opportunity to speak and to vent on our platform, because we don't always have an opportunity to do that, and ColumbusBlack allows us to do that. So what I asked people was, I said, 3 questions to simplify, and the third one is going to take us into conversation. But the first one is, what did you think the verdict was going to be when you got up this morning, right? So I think everybody was wondering what it might be. When you heard the verdict, what did you think or say first once you finally heard it? And then the third question is, what's next? And I know that ties to a lot of the work that you do and have done and will do. So, but what did you think, based off of what you had seen and heard in history, what did you think before you heard the verdict today?
Well, I'll have to admit, I was a little leery, somewhat leery, even though I think people were watching. I try not to watch too much of it because it'll get me all riled up. And actually, in particular today, I did have a workshop with where, as a representative of the NAACP, with 9 different police departments. Okay.
Very involved.
Local, and it was talking about how you de-escalate and about working with the Black and Brown community. So I was coming off of that. We just had a national, the state of Ohio NAACP had a national meeting the Black and brown, the Latino and the Black community coming to joining forces.
Right.
And so coming off of that and walking into a room with police officers on the day
of the verdict, of all days.
The verdict.
Wow.
So I was a little leery. I said, maybe I should call off sick today. Because if they bring that verdict out and I go out there and I'm just going to talk about how you de-escalate. And so I was really leery. And then I just started hearing, people were talking about it. But at this workshop, because they were all, and I was once again, and I told them, I said, now imagine what it feels like. I'm in this room. I'm a Black woman. I said, so I want you to know that I am, I'm not afraid. I belong here.
Right.
So walking into a room with what's going on today across the nation, I said, but you imagine I did this for all my life.
Yeah.
I've been the one that have to walk in the room. And that I think opened it up where they began to, because I came in joking. I said, this is my culture. I'm gonna tell you, I'm coming here, I'm representing my culture. So yeah, I got bright colors on. I said, yeah, I was bumping my music on the way over. And so I talked to them about the cultural piece and that, this is the whole package. But that was my thought going into that. Now, several of those officers knew me from the Black Lives Matter movement because I'm at Kent State University.
Right.
We had several protests here at Kent for various reasons, Black Lives Matters, and then some other incidents that have happened here. So they tend to stay in the limelight. But the thing about it is that's what I felt. Now, when I heard the verdict, of course, my family there in Columbus, we have a family group text.
Yeah.
And so the family people were on there, and of course, we all were celebrating when we heard that when the verdict was coming out. Yeah. The first one, we were like, okay, we're almost there. Then the second one came, was okay. So there's a third one to come.
Wow.
And it's important because in my role with the NAACP, I sit in on a lot of court cases because of the closeness, proximity to the university.
Okay.
It might be students, but people from our community. But we also, I look out and I have to realize that we get letters from prison. And many of the NAACP presidents will tell you that we get several letters. It could be about treatment, I'm not getting my medication, or just different things. And so it's more of a holistic. And when I started working with the NAACP, I think we were looking at just little small incidents, but it has heightened. And as I don't know, Mr. Derek, President Ford was saying, it is almost a full-time job.
Wow.
Trying to keep up with the complaints that come in. And I've never seen, I didn't think, because, I remember some of the things down in Columbus and Long Street when we had the riots going through there. I was young, but I remember that's where I lived on the east side. I remember that. Okay. And so we talk about that. And so after hearing what the verdict was, I can still say that we still got work to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so we have a lot of work to do.
Yeah.
Because we have a House Bill 22 that's happening right now, where they're trying to take away that right for individuals to use their cell phones to record. And so we can win in one case and we can breathe a lot easier.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, we've crossed one hurdle in this fight for justice, but the work continues and we still have to be at the forefront. So if you ask me what's next for us, the next for us is that we have to continue in the fight. It's not over. It's not over for us. And we need to be out there. And I think I heard Derek saying about the value added and why we need to vote and why we need to look out and we need to be grooming. Who are our next leaders?
Yeah.
Joyce Beatty is not there. Who's going to fill those shoes?
Right.
And so we need to begin to think about that as a community in all of our different cities. We need to begin to think about who's the future, who's going to step in to fill. And I know Obama's gone now, but he's still around. But who's going to come in and fill? Who's going to be next? We got Kamala.
Yep.
Harris is there. But it's not just in those positions, it's at the school board level, it's at all the levels going all the way up, that we need to begin to identify that leadership and make sure that we're running for those positions. But putting ourselves out there, and really it's kind of stepping out of our comfort zone.
Okay.
And so until we begin to think that, we're not going to rest until our communities, until we have the right to breathe.
Yeah.
The right to breathe freely, the right to jobs, the rights to opportunities. And as we look and we see what's happening in the workforce, and we call it the browning, the black and the browning of America,
yeah,
it's even more important that we need to begin to see ourselves, and no one talks about it. It was a sister that was there with that whole vaccine.
Right.
Okay, and we don't talk about that. We need to make him push for the education system so that we can have. Now, I was fortunate at Lyndon McKinley that I did have Black history, and it was taught at my high school. So I did see people, and I did hear about people, and I had Black teachers. Mr. Anderson was our principal, so we were able to see our people, and I really think that impacted me. That I was able to see that. But it's so important that we don't rest until everyone in our community has equal rights. And I mean everyone, that women are in those places, that we're breaking the glass ceilings. And so we have to continue to hold the George Floyd family up in prayer. But we also have Breonna's family. We had Tamar Rice. They were trying to get that case open again. That's what's next for us. We have to begin to, I think for a minute, we had kind of like stepped aside and think things were okay. The stimulus checks, we didn't spend the money. Now it's time to have boots on the ground, and people have to get out there. And we have to get out there, whether there's someone running for political office, whether we are working to get leaders in place and supporting our leaders, because we have to be real. We got to deal with the Black on Black crime in our Black community, okay?
Yep.
Now, when you see something, you need to say something. And so I've worked out there, we've seen our people, but that is the issue that we have to take care of. We can't blame anyone for the Black on Black crime that is taking place in our Black communities. And so I think it's the whole, yes, we're gonna hold administration, the systemic racism, we're gonna hold all those institutions responsible, but we're also gonna hold ourselves and our Black people responsible. The Black mothers can't do this alone by themselves anymore.
That's right.
So we need the brothers.
That's right.
Holding us up on one side.
That was a hint. That was a smooth hint, fellas. Come on, brothers, pick it up.
Yeah, so we need the brothers to, and so I always say we need to stand up, we need to speak up, and we need to take action. And so when I look at that, standing up for our children, whether it's in their education, making sure they get equal education, show up at the schools. Our kids have missed a whole year. So it's important for parents to stand up and say, okay, my child needs this, and fight for that, because we want to make sure that we equip our future leaders. We need to speak up. When we see the crime in our communities, when we know we know what a drug man is, we know what all these things are happening in our Black community. And things are not going to get better until we want them to be better.
Right.
And that includes the food deserts that's in our community.
Yep.
We need to have access to fresh fruit, vegetables. We need to have access to the jobs. There's going to be a lot of jobs around the electrical, this whole solar energy.
Right.
Those are totally different skill sets. And we need to make sure that we speak up and say, no, my child is going to go into this field, and not have a guidance counselor say, well, you need to go over here. But we need to look at and do those types of things and explore those for ourselves, for our children, like my parents did. They made sure that I went out there to Ohio Dominican and that I did those things that I needed to be equipped to move forward. And then the other thing is to take action. And so the take action part is to make sure that when those things are happening, that you see things happening around in the community, that you stand up for it. If one person, we can talk about that. Rosa Parks sat down so that we as a people can stand up. one woman sat down so that we as a people can stand up. So that is our take action. You may be the only person in that place that can do that, but it's so important that you do take action. We no longer turn our heads and say, okay, I didn't see that. And I'm talking about the discrimination. I'm talking about, we see people out on the streets. I know people are armed with guns, but I remember people would stop us when, we doing stuff that we shouldn't be doing. We had a respect.
Right.
We had a respect.
Yeah.
And so I always say to young people, and in closing, that we have a brand, and the brand is our names, the names that our parents gave us. And so we need to know our history. The people without their history will perish. So we got to make sure that we as parents take action to make sure that our children and demand that their history is taught in the public schools. And I'm a public school teacher, but that was my first career. And so I have to say that. But I don't know if you have any other questions, but I'm not a preacher. I am a university type, if you will.
Right.
But I just think that we do have to stand up. And I just think about the little young person that stood there with their camera and took that picture off the cell phone.
Thank God. Because we definitely know what the verdict would have been without that.
Without that tape.
Yeah.
And so that is just so important. And I just want to congratulate you. I think it is so much needed that we do have our Black voice. And, when I first went off and from the county, from Franklin County here, one of the things that I was really impressed with, I was like, talking about, in Columbus, we're doing this, and Columbus, we're doing that. I need for Columbus to come on and step it up. And so the work that you're doing, I think, is very valuable, as I said, and I'm hoping to hear more about what it is that you're establishing and what you're doing. And I wish you the best of luck, because we need something. We need to have the Black voice, because I was even looking for the call and post down there, our media and all of that was there. So it's very important.
Absolutely.
Very important.
It really is. And I appreciate that. We found that, especially in light of everything last year, we found that Black media has receded quite a bit, right? And we know technology has impacted that tremendously. So for us, we've really tried to amp it up and create more virtual opportunities to get the word and get information out relevant to our community, because our voice, as we know, is not there in mainstream media, especially on the news. So how are you going to get this kind of conversation, right, from us, where we can listen, appreciate it, respect it, and then obviously take action on it? We don't get enough of that. So I appreciate your sentiments. I look forward to us speaking more as well about what we're doing and what's ahead. We got some good stuff on the table. But I'm glad that Tiffany, and shout out to Tiffany Edwards for all she does. And I appreciate her reaching out to you to join us tonight as well.
Yes, and I'm appreciative of the Black Greeks and what our Greeks do. Absolutely. So I know we partner on a lot of things, and that's one of the things I always have to give a shout out, because it was because of the work of the heavy support of the Black Greeks that we have a vice president that looks like us.
That's right. That's right.
And so we rock the vote as well. And so I know that we can do it, but we just got to stand up, speak up, and take action.
Yes, we do.
Best to you.
Yes, I took those notes, and that's going to be shared on our social channels as well, so that they'll know that you said that. So listen, I want to share this with you because I want to make sure. So unfortunately for us, especially in Columbus, and your family members may have shared this and maybe they haven't yet, is we dealt with the difficult situation where we received this positive news in regards to the verdict. And within an hour and a half, we received negative news about a 15-year-old female that was shot by the police in Southeast Columbus, Ohio today. So we are addressing and absorbing that at this point in time. Crowds are already growing in the city over that. And we're still trying to get the facts, but it's a situation where we've said enough is enough. And I'm affiliated with an organization where literally that's what we call it. Enough is enough. And where Black men have come together to say, in our community, we've had enough, right? Like, stop it, like stop the killing, stop the shootings. And we started here in Columbus, and we're expected to grow beyond Columbus. But,
we haven't dealt with the last one.
I know. We still, and that's
and so that's why
back to back, by the way. Yeah.
Right. And so, yes, I've been hearing about the shootings there, and that's why I say that, because I have nieces and nephews, and you know, family is family.
Yeah.
And I'm very concerned about that.
Yeah.
My church is on the corner, home church is on the corner of 20th and Atchison, out on the east side of Columbus. And so I hear about it every time. I'm just, I don't even know what to say.
Yeah.
You know what, make me come down here because I put on my protest clothes and come.
Right.
When it comes to organizing, let me know if there's something that I can do. You know, contact me. That's very troubling.
Yes, it is very, very, very. So I wanted you to be aware. So because we'll be dealing with that, but I'll make sure that you're up to speed, and I will be in contact. Okay.
Okay. And yeah, we can get people.
All right.
Sometimes we have to, you know what I'm saying? Yeah.
We understand.
That's very troubling. And yes, and I'm going to wake up my family down there. I mean, you know, it's a large family there. I have a lot of family members there.
Awesome. So we're going to get the word out about stand up, speak up, and take action, and make sure we do those things. And
yeah.
Once again, we appreciate you, and I will be in touch. I look forward to building a relationship. All right?
All right, thanks.
All right, Dr.
You have a good evening.
You too. Take care. Bye-bye. Thank
Bye.
you. All right, folks, here you go. You have heard it live. ColumbusBlack.com. Y'all see the shirt? 16 years in the making next month, right? In a few weeks, and we're excited to be able to say that. You know, today was a very, very, I don't even call it interesting. I'm trying to come up with the word. I don't know. I'll say an emotional day, right? There was a lot that we know was riding on today as a nation, right? And across the world. So if you think about what we saw happen last year after George Floyd was murdered, we knew what was on the line today based on this verdict when they stated that it was coming out. So thank God that, you know, justice was served, and now we need to make sure justice continues to be served. So let's do our part. And as Dr. Nelson said, let's make sure that we stand up. Let's make sure that we speak up, and let's make sure that we take action. And with that being said, we're going to wrap up as we always do. Remember, y'all, in order to be more successful in your future, you need to understand a little bit more about your past. That's the reason why we just brought on some amazing individuals to share something so heavy. And we somewhat started to have a blast. But unfortunately, due to another situation, another incident, it still took us back as a reminder that we have work to do. So let's go do the work. And I'll see you all next time. Thank you all for joining me. Thank you, Tiffany Edwards, for reaching out and bringing the NAACP representatives on to talk about such an important and historic issue and day. We appreciate you on behalf of the Ohio Collective. And let's keep it going, y'all. So with that being said, I'm